Hello and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, maybe leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. I am Jesse Friedman alongside Jack Sommers. And Jack, a couple hours into the Diamondbacks Sunday finale against the Reds, the vibes were not high. Reds put 3 runs on Mitch Bratt. D-backs looking to be on the verge of maybe a series loss that would have felt really rough on a number of different levels. But the Diamondbacks come back. They score 1 run in the 6th, 4 in the 7th. It's a 5-3 win, and really big on a lot of different fronts, Jack. And also the Diamondbacks' 39th comeback win this season. That is second in all of baseball.
Did the Cubs come back today?
Yeah, technically, yes. The Cubs now have 40, but I feel like it shouldn't count because they were down 2-0 and they won 19-2.
Yeah, well, then that would constitute a comeback win, but not of the same ilk as what happened with the D-backs today. Your words of, this team is never as good as you think it is, and it's never as bad as you think it is, just keeps ringing in my head. I was thinking about that all afternoon.
Yeah, that is kind of the theme of the season. Just when you're sort of ready to count this Diamondbacks team out, they go out and they do something like they did late in this game. And just when you're starting to feel confident, more guys start getting hurt, and the Padres and Phillies keep winning. And we'll get into some of the injury stuff a little bit later. But it was a really, really big win, Jack. It's hard to describe how brutal a series loss to the Cincinnati Reds would have felt this weekend. Diamondbacks come through in the 7th inning. They were down 3-1. They got 3 guys to reach base to start that inning. James McCann takes a walk with the first 2 guys on, and later in that frame, Ildemaro Vargas delivered what felt like one of the more important hits for the Diamondbacks this season. A 2-run triple. It flipped a 3-2 deficit into a 4-3 lead, and the Diamondbacks led the rest of the way.
Yeah, even like the inning before that, though, it was Corbin Carroll really that kind of lit the fire again. Hit his 16th triple of the season. He's really going after that 20-20-20-20 thing. 20 stolen bases, homers, triples, and what's the fourth one?
Doubles. I think it's doubles, which
Doubles.
which
Yeah,
feels silly
yeah,
because 20 doubles is not like a huge accomplishment, but it sounds better when you say 20-20-20-20. So yes,
right.
he very much has a shot at that for sure.
So he scored on Gabby's sacrifice fly, and which was a kind of interesting play. But in the end of the day, like that really is like, okay, it's a 3-1 ball game. And you still got a chance here now. Wait a minute. We were flat. We were dead. This game's over. The season's over because we lost the series to the Reds. And then all of a sudden, like, with I even jokingly posted the old Undertaker meme of him sitting upright suddenly off the mat, and it just really felt like that. Like, okay, they could come back here. I had a sense of that when Corbin did that. So that preceded that 7th inning comeback winning rally, but it was kickstarted by Corbin, I think, and the bullpen, of course. I mean, the bullpen. We're going to talk about Mitch Bratt, but the bullpen was fabulous today. I mean, they gave them 6 scoreless innings, kept that game right where it was, and gave them a chance. And so, like the real heroes, the real goats of this were the bullpen.
Yeah, no doubt. The Diamondbacks bullpen has on the whole been an asset for them this season. It continues to be one of the most baffling things about the 2026 Arizona Diamondbacks is their bullpen, I think pretty clearly has helped them win more games than it has lost for them. And it's just been enormous this season. Gerardo Carrillo, the first man out of the bullpen in this one, he gives up a ground rule double, comes back and strikes out 3 straight Reds hitters in pretty dominant fashion. I know he did issue a couple of walks in the next inning, and that's been a trend with Gerardo Carrillo. But hey, he was, I think he arrived at 7 a.m. this morning, he said after the game, and it was just a be ready sort of situation. And he was ready. The Diamondbacks needed him, and it's good to see him back in the big leagues, Jack. I know the circumstances are not necessarily ideal. We'll get into those a little bit later, but Carrillo was really effective for this team when he was up in the big leagues earlier, and he kind of set the tone for the Diamondbacks bullpen in this one.
I'm going to sell you out here a little bit, Jesse. I just want everybody to know that he does get emotional sometimes over certain things. Not as much as I do usually, but I think the Carrillo send out was a tough one for you to swallow on a lot of levels. And behind the scenes, I got to see a little bit of a Jesse that you guys don't usually see. He did not like that move. So uh, seeing him come back and pitch well, I'm sure that made you very, very happy today, my friend.
It just, yeah, I continue to say that the guy had a 0.66 ERA, and usually you don't get sent down when those are your numbers, especially when the underlying stuff, just from a raw stuff standpoint, is what it is with Carrillo. His stuff is maybe as electric as just about any Diamondbacks reliever. So, anyway, Gerardo Carrillo is back. Taylor Clark followed that up with an inning and a third clean there. He was very efficient, only needed 10 pitches to get those 4 outs. And then it was Jonathan Loizaga in the 7th inning, Juan Murillo in the 8th. Brandon Garcia in the 9th inning. I guess the one note there is Garcia allowed a base hit with 2 outs in that frame. He looked sharp. He was throwing 99 miles an hour, kind of just a chopper single up the first baseline that got through. And Torrey was very aggressive in that spot. He had Kevin Ginkel ready to go for Dane Myers, who's a right-handed hitter, doesn't really have much pop at all against righties, much better numbers against lefties this season. And even as good as Brandon Garcia has been this year, Torrey pulled him in that spot. Kevin Ginkel came in. Ginkel got a ground ball. Unfortunately, Ildemaro Vargas not able to make the play. Ginkel has to face another batter, and took a while, but eventually he wore down Tyler Stevenson and got the final out. I thought it was an interesting managerial move, though, Jack. I was surprised at how aggressive Torrey was in that spot, and frankly, in the moment, I was a little puzzled by it. I think personally, I would have just rolled with Brandon Garcia.
Yeah, I was fine with it. They showed him a little bit earlier, starting to warm up, get loose slowly in the bullpen, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. So clearly, I had a little bit of time to kind of wrap my brain around what Torrey was thinking there, and then I'm looking at the lineup, and I thought, okay, well, if anybody gets on base, he's definitely not going to pitch to Myers. He's going to bring him in. So, you look at Myers' track record. I mean, it's quite a bit worse against right-handed pitching. And also, look, let's be honest. I mean, as good as Brandon Garcia is and as nasty as his stuff is, he has had some command issues lately. And so, instead of pushing him to go to the fifth batter and deal with that, he brought in a fresh Ginkle, and it worked. So, look, we're all being results oriented, but at the time, I mean, I was texting with you, and I was texting with our good friend Jeff Irving, who hopefully is listening today, and back and forth with a few different people, and I was, and also, of course, our guy Alex D'Agostino. So I had like multiple text threads going, and everyone's like, "What is he doing? What is he doing?" And I was telling everybody, I was like, "I'm okay with this. I really am." So for me, it was fine
I know Ginkel is
before
has
the before the fact.
Yeah, right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Ginkel has looked pretty good his last couple times out. He's had a rough month of August on the whole, so I think, maybe I was sort of thinking through some of those moments, and you'd hate to have a game where Ginkel just has an off day. He's forced to face the minimum 3 batters, even with 2 outs in the game. But all is well that ends well. D-backs were likely to win this game no matter what Torrey did in that spot. Just felt like an interesting, aggressive decision on his part in that moment. But yeah, offensively, Diamondbacks able to push across enough, even though things were pretty lean throughout most of this game. Ildemaro Vargas, I mentioned the defensive miscue in the 9th inning, but that was really a footnote in what was by and large a really good game for him. Jack 2 for 4, 2 runs batted in. He had a double and triple in this one, and he just continues to be a godsend for this team. He can play all over the place. Despite the miscue in the 9th, he's been great defensively at a variety of different positions. And I feel like we have to continue to sing the praises of Ildemaro Vargas because I don't know where this team would be without him. The number of gaps that he has managed to fill and his ability to transition from filling, a first base gap to a second base gap to just moving around the diamond in the way that he does, it has been invaluable for this team.
Yeah, I of course, I had another anti moment where I commented on Twitter that he'd after hitting those two home runs in Atlanta, he'd gone on to go 2 for 21, and then in his next at bat, he doubled, and then two at bats later, he tripled in for the game winning hit. So you're welcome, folks. I'll take credit for that.
That's how that works, for sure. Good game from Vargas. Good game from Corbin Carroll, as you referenced earlier, a double and a triple in this one. I guess we should talk about Mitch Bratt at least a little bit here, Jack.
While we're on offense, I just still want to bring up Tim
Yeah,
Tower. Two more hits,
yeah.
2 hits, run scored. I mean, what can we say? Tim Tower just hits.
Yeah, I mean, Tim, I know that he's been pretty streaky. It feels like he'll string together a few really great games, and then things can be a little rough for him for a few days after that. But his OPS is now up over 700 on the season. The defensive versatility is very much there with him as well. He's done a good job at first base. So yeah, he continues to help this Diamondbacks offense stay afloat. On the pitching side, Mitch Bratt was not great for the Diamondbacks in this one. Just 3 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. The walks are well documented. Jack, his command just seems to kind of fall off at times, and sometimes it's several walks happening in a short period of time, and we saw that again in this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, he had what 27 pitches, I think, in the first inning, and then he had an 8 pitch second inning, and those pitches were all pretty competitive, but it was the bottom of the order, and then he just got whacked. I mean, double, single, double, strikeout, base hit. To give up the 3 runs there. He ended up, struggling to finish up the third inning with another walk. So he walked 3 in all. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I mean, I think Jeff Brantley said something on the broadcast, which really, everyone talks about mechanics, but Brantley said every single pitch he's throwing looks like max effort. And that really rang true. Sometimes when somebody articulates something that you're seeing with your eyes, but you not sure what you're seeing. And when he said that, it's like, ding, that's what it is. I mean, here's a guy that throws, 89, 90, 91 on a good day. Looks like he's trying to, max effort every pitch to try to be able to compete at this level. And, I mean, it's hard to blame him. You can't really survive in Major League Baseball with an 89-mile-an-hour fastball these days. So, he's trying to hump it up to 91, 92 consistently. And that's what he's doing. He's overthrowing.
Hmm.
It's not the pirouette that's causing him to miss his target, because that happens after the pitch. It's the max effort.
Yeah, I think that's an insightful point. Definitely tracks with what we've seen from Bratt this season. On the whole, it's a 4.54 ERA. I think you can still stomach that. I mean, he's been at least viable for the Diamondbacks, but there are, this is back-to-back outings of only going 3 innings. So if
Yeah,
that
the
trend
bullpen
continues,
killers.
yeah, if that continues, then I guess the word viable is not really fitting there anymore. I know he had a couple of other really good starts earlier this month, but the D-backs could really use some more consistency, especially with some of the injury news that we're going to get into later in the show. Before we do that, the first couple games of the series, Jack, let's hit on those real quick. Friday, not competitive. Diamondbacks get out in front in the first inning. Gabby Moreno hits an RBI single. They tack on several more runs in the front few frames there. Eduardo Rodriguez goes out there 5 2/3 innings, no runs allowed on a day where he still didn't have his best stuff. And he just continues to impress. It was a great day for Jordan Lawler in particular. That was good to see after a rough showing in Boston. That was one of the more complete wins this team has had this year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that, you say, okay, 9-0. Look at the way they played. You kind of hopeful. Oh, we got Soroka going the next day. There's a chance that they could sweep this series. And it sure felt like that after after Friday night. Unfortunately, Saturday night happened. And
Yeah.
Saturday night happened with a short outing from Michael Soroka, where he left the game after just 3 1/3 innings. He gave up, ended up giving up 6 earned runs, left a couple inherited runners out there that both came in to score. And just did not have any really. He wasn't sharp. He just didn't have his command, didn't have his stuff. We later found out why, but that was really disappointing in the moment. The team did try to come back, but they weren't able to. Torrey went to Zack Littell in that game with 2 on and 1 out in the 4th inning. And a lot of people criticized that move. I think, especially because of the results, because Littell immediately gave up a hit. He walked a couple of batters, and by the time that inning was over, it was 6-0. But I want to point something out. Already down 4-0 in with 1 out in the 4th and 2 runners on, the Diamondbacks win percentage was already down to 11%. Yes, technically it's a winnable game, and a lot of people will shout that at me. But that game, you're not going to win more than 1 out of every 10 times. And so to argue that Torrey should be using a high leverage reliever in the 4th inning of a game you're losing 4-0 with 2 runners on base and only 1 out, it's just not a good argument. It's not how teams and bullpens are managed. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think in the moment it was easy to criticize and be like, "Oh, you're waving the white flag," or whatever you want to say. But Zach Littell entering that game, it had one really good outing with the D-backs and one really bad outing with the D-backs. So maybe he comes in and does what he did in his first outing with the Diamondbacks against Colorado. Maybe dials up a double play and is able to keep them in the game for a while. So unfortunately, it was not that type of day for Zach Littell. He ultimately is designated for assignment, and we'll dive into some of the roster news a little bit more later in the show. But before we get into all of that stuff, we are going to talk a little bit of Ketel Marte. There's been some more news here in the past few days. The Diamondbacks also had their meeting with Ketel Marte since our last episode that happened on Thursday. So we'll give some updates there. And then we'll circle around to Littell, Soroka, the latest on Corbin Burnes, a lot of other interesting roster and injury updates. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this here on Snakes Territory.
One of the things that I wasn't very good at was playing Major League Baseball. One of the things that I'm really good at is sweating. Even now, when I'm not playing, I need hydration. I need to make sure it's convenient. That's why I choose Quince.
Yep, Quince electrolyte stick packs to the rescue, Kratz. They taste great, and the zero sugar options are stevia-free. They're keto approved, naturally sweetened with fermented rice, and like everything Quince does, they're thoughtfully made and priced well. At $20 for 30 servings, they're less than half of the leading brand. Give your body what it really needs to stay hydrated. Go to quince.com/foul for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/FOUL for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/foul. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
We are back here on Snakes Territory. We really appreciate all of you being here with us. If you haven't already, be sure to drop a like on this video on YouTube. While you're at it, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell icon for notifications so you never miss an episode of the show. And if you're joining us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we say this a lot around here, but we really would appreciate it if you would leave us a 5-star review. It's a really great way to support the show. And if you want a cool hat or shirt, like those that Jack is sporting today, you can find those over on snakesterritoryshop.com. We also really appreciate you supporting the show in that way. Well, Jack, Ketel Marte continues to be a storyline with this Diamondbacks team. Since our last episode, the D-backs had a 3-hour meeting with Ketel Marte on Thursday talking about the details of his disappearance in Boston earlier in the week. Marte was also, as I'm sure everyone has heard by now, he's been placed on the 10-day injured list with knee inflammation. That continues to be a storyline we'll be monitoring as he tries to work his way back. Seems like it might not be too long for Ketel. But the big storyline, Jack, on Friday was that Ketel Marte was seen at a casino out by Salt River Fields, and this happened during the Diamondbacks Friday night game. I don't think you or I thought this was as much of a story as it was, but we should hit it nonetheless. Jack, what did you think?
Well, I just kind of want to roll back a little bit first on the injury part, because I was in a room with Tori on Friday. I'm sure many people saw snippets here and there, the videos, and I did write an article if you happen to catch my article about it. But the key point that I want to bring up is that Tori indicated that Ketel's biggest issue, at least with the team, was the handling of the injury and the communication around the knee injury. And that's what his frustration revolved around, according to Tori. Now, we haven't heard from Ketel yet, but that's how Tori characterized it. At the same time, he expressed his own feelings and of frustration, and he used the word betrayal. He felt very betrayed by the whole situation. So that was a very strong word. All while at the same time refusing to say specifically what was said during the meeting. But obviously he got some things off his chest. He did say that Ketel acknowledged where he was in the wrong as well in this situation. So that's kind of the gist of it. If you want to see my article on it, there is one if you date back a few days. Now, with regards to the casino thing, look, I was surprised by it. My initial reaction was probably the same as 95% of people, like, oh, Ketel, what are you doing, man? But the reality is this, and a lot of people really aren't clear on this. Very few players are hanging around the clubhouse or the team while they're on the injured list. They'll come in and out from time to time. Guys will come in, they'll show up. Sometimes a pitcher will come in to do a bullpen session at Chase Field. But for the most part, they go to Salt River Field in the morning, they work out, they get their work in there, and you don't even see them at Chase Field. Maybe they come in and out when we're not around, but they're just not around very much. That's normal. That's the normal thing. Now, in this situation where they're trying to calm everything down, the last thing that they needed actually was Ketel in that clubhouse or sitting in that dugout while on the injured list on Friday night. That would not have been what they needed or wanted. However, I'm sure nobody also wanted to see him, out at night at the casino. It's just the quote unquote bad look. It didn't look great. But as Tori said, he didn't break any rules. He wasn't doing anything wrong. His free time is his time. He could go to a movie. He could go to a concert. He chose to spend his time at the casino with his wife. And, it's not a great look. It's probably would have been smarter and better for him to just stay home that night instead of go out that night. But that's what he chose to do. As Tori said, he's a grown man. But that's not the reason to be upset with Ketel. If you're upset with Ketel, it should be because he didn't show up on Monday in Boston, period. That was the issue.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I think if you buy into Ketel Marte having a knee injury that has put him on the injured list, then there's nothing wrong with him doing this in that sense. Is it a bad look? You could make a case for that, and I probably wouldn't disagree with you. This is what Torey Lovello said the day after the incident. He didn't say a whole lot about it the night of, but the next day he said the optics weren't very good. It's not a choice I would make. I'm sure it's a choice a lot of people in this room wouldn't make. Ketel is a grown man and he can make his own decisions. He did not break any rules. He was fully able to go there and do what he wanted to do. Like I said, he makes his own decisions when he's here in the clubhouse. We work together on a lot of things, not just him, all the players. They have their own lives and they can do whatever they want in their free time. So, not a great look, but yeah, Ketel Marte did not break any rules by doing that. And I think there's still bigger questions to answer about exactly what happened earlier in the week. I think that's where the focus really should be, as well as him working his way back from this knee injury and hopefully making an impact on this Diamondbacks roster before too long. Do you have anything else to add on the Ketel thing, Jack, before we move on to some other stuff?
I would rather just talk about baseball. Look, I know everybody wants to know what I think. Well, obviously, what I think is it really sucked that he didn't go to the ballpark Monday, and I think that the communication around that was bad. I'm happy that he didn't have some kind of, crisis issue that would endanger his life or anybody of his family, and then whatever else it is has to be worked out. How he's going to walk back into that clubhouse and talk to his teammates and smooth things over, and how he's going to respond when he gets booed his first at bat, because I think there's going to be more boos than cheers. And what the pressure is going to be like on him, how he plays when he comes back. This isn't going away. We're going to have to deal with this. So enough for today. I don't want to talk about it anymore today.
That is very fair. And with that, we will move on to some roster news that we got before Sunday's game. Around 11 a.m., the Diamondbacks announced that Dre Jameson had been reinstated from the 15-day injured list. They designated Zack Littell for assignment, as I mentioned earlier. And then shortly before game time, just about 20 minutes or so before first pitch, the D-backs recalled Gerardo Carrillo from AAA Reno. Again, he arrived around 7 a.m. This morning, and then they put Michael Soroka on the 15-day injured list with right arm inflammation. Sounds like Soroka did not report any issues after his start on Saturday night, but this issue popped up today, and the Diamondbacks wind up putting him right back on the injured list. Of course, he was only able to make a few starts in between there. Yeah, it's just kind of been the story of Michael Soroka's career, Jack. Durability has been a challenge for him. Unfortunately, that's been the case this year. The silver lining here is it sounds like he's by no means done for the season. It sounds like he could be back before too long, maybe around the minimum 15-day stay.
Yeah, well, Tori said that, but don't believe it. It's just that simple. He says that on half the injuries, and it's never true. The D-backs haven't had one player this year come back at the minimum stay on the IL, not one. And yet, some of them he'll say, "Oh, this is going to be weeks, not days." But on many of them, I'm hopeful that it'll be. Yeah, well, whatever. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah,
That's it.
he doesn't really have anything to lose by saying that to the media, right? I'm hopeful it'll be as short as possible. I'm hopeful it'll be, right after the minimum stay or whatever. This is from our good friend Alex Weiner after the game today. Torey Lovello said about Soroka, he's going to hopefully be ready on day 16. The plan is to get him a couple days down, get him back on the bump, and miss as few days as possible. You mentioned earlier Soroka was clearly not at his best in that game on Saturday, and I guess this inflammation helps explain that. Maybe a little odd that Zack Littell was designated for assignment pretty much at the exact same time. We talked just a few days ago about how Littell had a shot to step into the rotation if the D-backs had a need. But, after he did what he did on Saturday, you're looking at an ERA over 7 in his 3 games with the Diamondbacks. So, I don't know how they're going to fill this rotation spot, but it's hard to make a case that like Zack Littell was an awesome candidate for that.
Stealing a line from one of our listeners and a very good friend of mine, too Littell, too late.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it was not a great stay in Arizona for Zack Littell. There was some good vibes with his first game against Colorado, but yeah, I think there's no reason for us to be like really surprised by this. I mean, this is a guy who was designated for assignment by the Washington Nationals earlier in the season, a team that has had real pitching problems this season. So it's unfortunate that Littell didn't work out because the Diamondbacks absolutely could have used some more length in the bullpen, his ability to step back into the rotation. And now, without Littell in the picture, without Soroka for the time being, lining up a rotation for this upcoming week is going to be quite difficult for this Diamondbacks team.
Yeah, but in this case, this pitcher isn't pitching very well this year at all, and probably just doesn't have it anymore. And so good that they cut bait quickly. But yes, they are desperate now for pitching, and they're really up against it this coming week.
We'll dive a little bit more into that later in the show. We're going to try to like fit the pieces together and figure out what on earth the Diamondbacks are going to do on Saturday when they have a doubleheader against the San Francisco Giants. Not a great scheduling situation there. The corresponding moves, as I think I mentioned, Gerardo Carrillo is back up. He looked good today in his outing on Sunday. Dre Jameson was expected to pitch in Reno on Sunday, but because of these circumstances, the D-backs bumped him up and brought him back to the majors. So Dre Jameson back from the injured list, and he looked pretty good at times earlier in the season. We know he can give the Diamondbacks more than 3 outs, which has a lot of value for a team that doesn't have a whole lot of length right now in the starting rotation.
Yeah, I mean, right now at least they have 2 guys that they feel like they can go multiple innings in Jameson and Carrillo. So, Carrillo's only been pitching like every 4 days, so I don't expect to see him, before Wednesday or Thursday, this coming week, probably Thursday. So, Jameson's probably going to have to do some work this week in the Cubs series.
Well, Corbin Burnes is coming back soon? Question mark. Torey Lovullo gave kind of a surprising update there. We have some updates on some other injured players as well. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back on Snakes territory right after this. Well, if you've been watching or listening to Snakes territory for a while, hopefully you know that SeatGeek is the place to go for all of your baseball ticketing needs. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app, and there are more than 70,000 events listed on the app, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. It is not just for baseball, although it is very good for that as well. They have this lovely rating system where you can see on a scale of 1 to 10 just how good of a deal you are getting, and how much Jack and I love numbers and comparing people, players together, comparing in this case seats to one another, and how good of a deal you are getting. So SeatGeek is really an ideal fit for people like us. Plus, every ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. And of course, we have a promo code for you to use. You can use code Territory10 for 10% off your next set of MLB tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any MLB tickets with promo code Territory10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so that you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek.
Just a quick word from me: the more bang for your buck using that 10% on a game. Look, the Cubs games are going to be a little bit more expensive, but so you use the 10% actually on the higher price games. You're saving more money, and also the D-backs could really use some support because the Cub fans are going to be out in force. So if you haven't yet, hop on SeatGeek, use that promo, and get yourself out there for the Cubs series.
There you go. It will be a big one the next few days out at Chase Field. And of course, I'm sure there will be a decent number of Cubs fans in the stands as well. I don't think Corbin Burnes is going to pitch in the Cubs series, Jack, but he might pitch for the Diamondbacks relatively soon. Torey Lovullo told reporters that Burnes threw 20 pitches on Friday, facing live hitters for the first time. He is set to go 2 innings and 35 pitches at Salt River Fields on Tuesday. And Torey has said the plan is for him to just go every 5 or 6 days thereafter, adding an inning and around 12 pitches every time. Normally, when we see starting pitchers go through this, you want them built up to at least like 5 innings, 75 pitches or so before they would come back to the majors. With Corbin Burnes, though, Jack, it does not sound like that's necessarily the case.
Yeah, well, what the indication here is, first of all, he said it every 5-6 days. So Burnes is going to have to pitch on the 30th, Sunday, because there's no minor league games on the 31st. There's no affiliated minor league games on the 31st. So if you pitch on the 25th, then he's going to pitch again on the 30th. From there, his next outing, conceivably, he could be able to go 4+ innings. And the question now is that going to be in the major leagues or another minor league outing? Because of where the Diamondbacks are right now, with Soroka just hitting the IL and some difficult scheduling situations, I think that they're probably going to go ahead and just, if those two outings go well, the 25th and the 30th go well, there's no issues. I think that they're going to just bring him back around September 4th or 5th at the latest. That's what I think is happening. Ideally, he would have September 4th or 5th to do one more minor league game, but I don't think the D-backs have that luxury at the moment.
The Diamondbacks are definitely going to benefit from getting the extra roster spot in September. I think that's part of what allows you to do this, like having Corbin Burnes and maybe Mitch Bratt stays in the rotation is another guy you're not sure you're getting a ton of length from. Having that extra arm in September really helps. The D-backs also have a decent number of off days in the month of September. They have a couple of them in the first week of September, if you include August 31st. And then they have one off day in each week thereafter. So it should allow them to be able to deal with a Corbin Burnes who maybe is only going to give you 4 innings in his first appearance. But there are times, Jack, where I kind of forget what it looked like for Corbin Burnes to pitch with the Arizona Diamondbacks because we didn't really see a whole lot of it. There are times when I have to remind myself that he's actually a member of this team and signed the biggest contract in franchise history. But yeah, getting him back, knowing the competitor that he is, maybe it's a big lift for this team. There's also part of me that's like, yeah, he's coming back from an elbow surgery plus a shoulder injury. We probably should keep the expectations relatively low.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll be pleasantly surprised if he goes 4 innings and only gives up 1 or 2 runs. Honestly, I mean that's where I'm at. Like you said, an elbow injury, a shoulder injury, hasn't pitched since last year in June. I expect the velocity to be in the low 90s. I don't expect to see 95, 96. Hopefully I'm wrong. That would be a pleasant surprise. But more than likely, he's probably going to be in the low 90s, below 95, just because usually this is what we see. So fingers crossed. I mean, Torrey did say he's Corbin Burnes, but I kind of almost feel like that's setting expectations unfairly high. I do not expect the Corbin Burnes that was a Cy Young contender with the Milwaukee Brewers, or even the guy that, while he was maybe getting a little bit lucky here and there, pitched pretty good for the D-backs, but wasn't a Cy Young level Corbin Burnes before he went down with injury. I don't expect that guy at this time. Now, maybe he gets to that point by the end of September as they roll into the postseason, but certainly not early September.
Elsewhere on the pitching front, Zack Gallen was scheduled to throw a bullpen on Saturday. Presumably he did that. So Gallen continues to work his way back. We don't have a great picture right now of what his timeline would look like. But for better or worse, Jack, it looks like there's a decent chance the Diamondbacks would need him, or at least would give him a shot if he were healthy at some point. So he's a name to continue to watch. Ryan Nelson is throwing bullpens as well. He appears to be in probably just reliever territory. That's been our thought here for a while. It's going to be impossible for him to build all the way up to his starter's load. But if he can come back as maybe a multi-inning reliever, a guy who could at least get 6 or 9 outs for you, that could be a benefit. Also on the pitching front, Blake Walston is throwing in another game. I think he's set to make his 6th outing, his 6th appearance in Reno. I have Sunday on my list here. Is Blake Walston pitching as we speak right now?
I do not know. I'd have to look.
I guess I know
in
he
any
said
case,
earlier that Tommy Henry is pitching in that game, right? But maybe Walston is pitching behind him, something like that.
Yeah, Blake Walston is coming back as a reliever, not as a starter.
Yeah. Okay. So Walston started the game and went 2 innings today, 27 pitches, 1 run, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. And then Tommy Henry actually pitched behind Blake Walston, is the way the D-backs have lined everybody up. Henry is still pitching in that game as we speak right now. So this is Walston's 6th appearance in Reno. And yeah, it was just 27 pitches. So maybe he's a factor on the big league roster at some point, but we will see.
Cool.
On the position player front, Jack, I guess there's a few guys there as well. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. played in AAA Reno on Friday, I believe it was. He is starting to get relatively close here. Of course, Lourdes very much struggled for the Diamondbacks earlier this season. I think there are still very valid questions to be asked about, like, what could Lourdes actually bring to your roster in 2026, given what we saw from him earlier. But he is on the comeback trail, and by all indications, the Diamondbacks would give him a shot if he was healthy enough to do so.
Over who?
I don't know.
Where's
That's
he?
for
Where's he
that's for
taking?
them. That's for
Where,
them to figure out.
I mean, if he's taking plate appearances away from Ryan Waldschmidt and Jordan Lawler, there's going to be rioting on the down at Chase Field. Rightfully
Yeah.
so. I mean, that's just where it's at. Look, Lourdes made a lot of contributions to this team, and spent many years as a very solid hitter in this league. But he has not been that this year, and he's just not dependable or reliable. And if the team, wedges him in there somehow and starts giving him a lot of plate appearances and taking that away from the young players that are performing well. I mean, they're just not. They're not just bodies out there. They're running around. They're bringing a lot of energy to this team. They're improving and getting better. And if we start to see plate appearances disappear so that they can play Lourdes, I'm not going to be happy, and neither is anybody else. And I mean, the odds are really long against getting good results out of that. So I'll just say it up front. I don't think they should do that. I think that they're going to have to figure something else out.
I know you pointed out, I think this was on Twitter, that Max Kepler has not played for the Diamondbacks a whole lot in recent days. So maybe there's a world where the D-backs would go to Lourdes instead of Kepler. But obviously Kepler is left-handed and Gurriel is right-handed. It's not really a match. Lourdes also, I'm looking at his numbers in Reno. Through Saturday, he was 2 for 13 with 2 walks but 7 strikeouts in this rehab outing. Both of those hits are singles. Not exactly awesome numbers in AAA.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even pay attention to those numbers. That's not even the point. Also, I mean, Kepler's started 1 game out of the last 7. He's not playing. He's already been marginalized. He's probably going to lose his roster spot at some point very soon. But if Lourdes comes back and say he takes Kepler's place on the roster, that who is going to get Max Kepler's at bats, which are almost non-existent? Are you going to just sit Lourdes on the bench? I don't know what they're going to do there with that. Even just because rosters expand, like how do you rosters expand, but the number of positions in the lineup does not.
That's a great point. It'd be nice if it did, maybe, I guess. Tommy Troy is maybe another name we should mention here. He faced Corbin Burnes on Friday, was set to play in a facility game on Saturday. As of that's Torey Lovello's updates on Friday at the beginning of this Red series. So Tommy Troy may be getting close here as well. He is a type of player where even though he's another right-handed bat who has much better numbers against lefties, but he's also the fastest player on the roster. If you go by sprint speed, I think he's even above Corbin Carroll, if you can believe that. So that's an element of his game that you could see being handy, especially late in games if you want to pinch run him or whatnot. And he can cover a variety of positions as well. So maybe Tommy Troy winds up being a factor in this thing at some point.
Second base.
Yeah, you hope that Ketel is back here before too long, and that doesn't wind up being in a flux for too much longer. But as of right now, Ildemaro Vargas holding down the fort over there. Very, very good game on Sunday, as we referenced earlier. Looking ahead here, Jack, the Diamondbacks have a bit of a mess in front of them. We mentioned it. There's this doubleheader on Saturday. The Giants' schedule got weird, and it required the Sunday game to be rescheduled to Saturday as a doubleheader. So the Diamondbacks, their pitching rotation lines up fine for Chicago. They've got Merrill Kelly, Brandon Pfaadt, and Eduardo Rodriguez lined up there. But then the Thursday game against San Francisco, roster resource has Cole Drake listed right now. We think that Jose Cabrera from Reno we saw earlier this year. We think he is also very much in that conversation. And then Mitch Bratt would line up to go on Friday. And then you've got Saturday where, yes, Merrill Kelly could pitch, but Brandon Pfaadt could not. So the Diamondbacks really have two question marks over the next week. Who's going to pitch on Thursday in that spot? Maybe Cole Drake, maybe a Jose Cabrera, and then who's going to pitch on Saturday? Presumably behind Merrill Kelly or in front of Merrill Kelly. I don't know what the order would be, but Kelly could start one of those games, not both. And with a doubleheader, you probably don't want to run a bullpen game out there for either of those.
Yeah, they're just shorthanded here, and that doubleheader couldn't come at a worse time for the Diamondbacks because of where they are with the rotation and Soroka injury and Burnes not ready to come back yet. They do get to bring up an extra pitcher, for the doubleheader, so there's that. But they also have an open spot on the 40-man roster. So they could also add a pitcher to the 40-man roster. Maybe there's somebody that they feels pitching well enough and performing well enough that they could bring him up and try to get 3-4 innings. In AAA, you also have Yuman Lin, Dylan Ray, Tommy Henry, who's pitching today. So there's guys that they could maybe stick on the 40, even if it's just for a day. But then, if you got to turn around and DFA him to make room, that's not great. So, you start with the 40-man roster options and then go from there. They're at 39 right now, but they're going to need to add Corbin Burnes relatively quickly. So that brings you to 40.
It is a mess. There are no real easy answers there. Jose Cabrera has not pitched great lately in Reno. I think he gave up like 8 runs in his last outing, a pretty short one for him. But you look at his strikeout and walk numbers in August, he's at 19 strikeouts to 4 walks. So at the very least, you feel like he's putting the ball on the plate. He's challenging hitters, and in Reno, certainly bad luck is a very real thing there. So looking at the underlying stuff, it feels like Jose Cabrera would maybe be the guy that they would want to go to here. Cole Drake has really struggled his last couple times out in AAA. I believe it's 9 walks in his last 2 outings there. So the command has kind of backed up on him the past couple of times out there. So no easy answers for the D-backs on the pitching front this next week. They need some length out of some of these guys, and they might need someone to step up that we didn't really expect to see here in late August with the D-backs in the middle of a playoff push.
Yeah, shame on me. I should have been looking at the waiver wire as well, see if there's anybody else out there. Who's the next Zack Littell?
Yeah, that is also totally possible. We saw Nabil Krismat make a bunch of starts for the Diamondbacks down the stretch last year, and it wound up being actually really good after they traded Merrill Kelly at the deadline. So we'll see what happens on that front. A big story to watch over the next week. And speaking of big stories to watch, the Philadelphia Phillies, Jack, may never lose another baseball game as far as I'm concerned. They won their 9th consecutive game on Sunday, completing yet another sweep. This time it was the St. Louis Cardinals, and they were down 4-0 with a runner at second and 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, and they came back and won the game by a final score of 6-4. That's just what the Phillies do. At least that's what they have done here over the past couple of weeks. The Padres here at 71-60, they continue to win games as well. They complete a weekend sweep of the Minnesota Twins, and they stay 2 games out in front of the Diamondbacks. So the D-backs, 2 games behind San Diego, 4 games behind Philly. And then the Miami Marlins also won a 3rd consecutive game today over the Washington Nationals. They're now just a couple games behind the D-backs and 4 games out of that 3rd wildcard spot.
Yeah. One thing is that it's been talked about a bit lately is, who knows, maybe within a week or so, it's going to be the Braves that are going to pop up in this wild card race table, not the Phillies. That'd be pretty wild.
Yeah.
D-backs up against it. I talked about last show how I've projected that they're going to need to get to 88 wins. Right now the Padres are on pace for 88 wins. So even that might not be enough. The Padres just, are too hot they're playing too well. I think that Fangraphs is behind the curve as far as how many games that they're projecting the Padres to win this year. But, can the D-backs get hot enough to get to 89, 90 wins? I don't know. That seems really almost out of the realm of reality for what this team is. I mean, they haven't been more than 8 games over 500 at any point in the season, and they only reached that level twice for very brief moments in the very recent past. And really 7 to 8 games above 500 in total has been their high watermark since the end of May. So I don't know how the D-backs are going to all of a sudden, get to 90 and 72 or 89 and 73 and somehow pip the Padres. That seems not very realistic, especially with the pitching injuries that they have. However, they play the games on the field, not on our computers and not on our podcast, and we promise to dive into everything that possibly gives any hope that they could do that.
The D-backs went 3-3 on their road trip to Boston and Atlanta, which again, going in would have been like, yeah, you'll take that against those two teams on the road. They just won 2 out of 3 at home against the Cincinnati Reds. Not awesome, but yeah, that's fine. If you do those kinds of things over the course of a season, you feel like you're going to end up in a good spot. And yet, over these last 9 games, the Diamondbacks have dropped in the standings. Right, just this past weekend, they lost a game to the Padres. They lost a game to the Phillies as well. Both of those teams pulling off sweeps. San Diego is playing at a 106 win pace going back to the All-Star break. They're 23-12 since the All-Star break. The Phillies are now 19-14. The D-backs are 20-15, which is good. But it feels like it just hasn't been good enough compared to what these other teams are doing right now. So it's going to be an uphill battle with just a little over a month to go in the season. But hey, we're just all thinking about that 3-game series against San Diego at the end of the year, 3-game series against Philly at the end of this month. Feels like those are kind of going to make or break this thing for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, but they're going to have to win 2 out of 3 from the Cubs first. They can't lose a series because they'll lose ground. They just can't give up any more ground.
So in conclusion, the D-backs just can't lose another game the rest of the season. And if they manage
can't lose
to do
series.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
They need to reel off like 7 series wins in a row. Or they need to go on an 8 or 9 game winning streak of their own. I mean, something like that. They've either got to win 7 series in a row or they've got to just rip off a 7-game winning streak like right now.
That is definitely what it feels like. And yet baseball is weird. And sometimes teams that are super hot and look undefeatable, like the Padres and Phillies right now, sometimes they hit a roadblock, and who knows what we could see in the next month plus. But we are excited to follow it along with all of you, and we very much appreciate you being here on this episode of Snakes Territory. If you haven't already, be sure to follow us on Twitter. I am at Jesse N. Friedman. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. Our show is at Snakes Territory. Do all the things we said earlier. If you would be so kind, drop a like on the video, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. Those things really, really help us out. And of course, you can find Jack's written work over at Arizona Diamondbacks on SI. Jack, any final thoughts before we get out of here and head into what should be a fascinating week for this Diamondbacks team?
Not a whole lot to add. I think we've said enough for today.
Thank you again to all of you for being with us. We really appreciate your time, and we'll be back on Tuesday night. Looks like it'll be Tuesday night, a post-game show after that Tuesday game against the Chicago Cubs. That'll be live on our YouTube channel. And so we hope that we will see you back here then.